Hey guys, tonight we are traveling back in time. And I'll be honest, our destination is a little intense. We're heading to ancient Sparta, but we're not going to be visiting the glorious, cinematic battlefields you're used to seeing. Now we're going to experience what it was really like to be a Spartan, starting from the very first, and arguably the most terrifying, day of your life. A little heads up: based on the rules of this society, you might not even survive this first chapter, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support truly means the world. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first sensation you register isn't the warmth of a mother's embrace. It's the crisp, biting air of the Tagus Mountains. You're here only a few hours old. Your vision is a blur of light and shadow. But you can feel the shift from a swaddled warmth to a chilling exposure. Strong, coerced hands, not gentle ones, are holding you. These are not the hands of your father, but of a state official. Your father is nearby, but he is silent, his face a mask of stoic anticipation. He has no say in what happens next. You, a tiny, helpless thing, are property of the state before you are a son. You're brought before a council of elders, the Jarosae, a group of men, on over 60, with faces carved by sun and war. They don't coo or smile. They assess. They are looking at you the way a farmer inspects livestock, searching for imperfection. Is your body well formed? Are your limbs straight and strong? Do you cry with vigor? Or is your well thin and weak? This isn't a celebration of new life, it's a quality control inspection. The entire future of Sparta, they believe, rests on the physical perfection of its next generation of warriors. There is no room for weakness, no place for anyone who might be a drain on the state's resources. No pressure. Right. Then comes a rather peculiar and unnerving test, a detail that later writers like Plutarch would emphasize. You are plunged into a basin of unmixed wine. The logic, as strange as it sounds to us, was that the pure wine would cause a weak or epileptic infant to have convulsions and perish, while a strong, healthy baby would temper and become even stronger. Imagine that for a moment your first bath is a pass or fail test for survival, administered with alcohol. A rather intense first spot, eh? Your sputtering cries echo slightly in the open-air chamber as the elders watch, their expressions unreadable. They are looking for that flicker of constitutional weakness, that sign that you are not fit to carry a shield for Sparta. You are lifted out, dripping and gasping, and the final examination begins. They turn you over, running their fingers along your spine, checking the shape of your head, the set of your shoulders. A quiet murmur passes between them. It's a language of grunts and nods, the communication of men who have done this hundreds, perhaps thousands, of times. Your fate hangs on this silent, brutal consensus. If you are deemed worthy, you are handed back to your parents, your life officially sanctioned by the state. You have passed the first and most arbitrary trial. But if there is any perceived flaw, crooked limb, a mark of sickness, or simply a constitution they deem ill-tempered, the verdict is silent and swift. There is no debate. You would be taken to a place called the Apo the Tay, a chasm on the slopes of the mountains. The deposit, as the name translates, there, you would simply be left to the elements, to the wild animals, to fate. A life extinguished before it had a chance to begin, a sacrifice to the Spartan ideal of collective strength. Now, it's worth noting that historians and archaeologists still argue about the scale of this practice. While ancient sources like Plutarch paint a picture of systematic, state-run infanticide, some modern scholars are skeptical. Archaeological digs at the supposed Apo the Tay haven't uncovered the vast number of infant remains you'd expect if this happened to every imperfect child. The debate continues: was this a foundational reality of Spartan life, or was it a piece of brutal propaganda? A story the Spartans told about themselves and that others told about them to enhance their fearsome reputation. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle. A practice reserved for only the most severe cases. But for you, in this moment, the academic debate is meaningless. The only thing that matters is the final nod from the chief elder. He gestures, and you are wrapped tightly once more and placed back in your father's arms. The air in his lungs, which he deep been holding, is released in a quiet, almost imperceptible sigh. You have been approved. You are allowed to live. But as you are carried home, the cold mountain air still clinging to your skin, you are unaware that this is not the end of your trials. It is only the beginning. Your life is no longer your own, it now belongs to Sparta. For 7 years, you are allowed a sliver of what other Greek children might call a childhood. You live at home. You feel the warmth of your mother's presence, even if her affection is tempered by a Spartan reserve. She teaches you the stories of the gods and heroes, of Heracles, from whom all Spartans claim descent. Your father, when he is home from the barracks and his communal meals, teaches you the importance of discipline and respect for your elders. It's a life of simple, structured comfort. You are fed, you are clothed, you sleep in a proper bed. You are loved, in the stern, unsentimental way of your people. You are blissfully unaware that this is all temporary, a brief loan from the state. Then, on the morning of your 7th birthday, the loan is called in. There is no party, no celebration. Instead, an official arrives at your door. He is the paidonomos, the warden of the boys. He is a man chosen for his impeccable virtue and his harshness, and he holds absolute authority over every boy in Sparta. Your mother's face is a carefully constructed mask of calm. She is not permitted to cry or show weakness. To do so would be a disgrace. But you see it in the tightness of her jaw, the way her hands clench the fabric of her tunic. Your father places a firm hand on your shoulder, his grip a silent command to be brave. There are no long goodbyes. This is not a departure, it is a transfer of property. You are led away from your home, turning back only once to see the door close, shutting away the only life you have ever known. You are now entering the Agoge, the notorious Spartan public education system. The word education is misleading. This is not a place of learning in the Athenian sense, with philosophy and rhetoric. The Agoge has one purpose and one purpose only: to systematically dismantle the boy you were and rebuild you into a perfect cog for the Spartan war machine. Your individuality, your fears, your comforts, they are all liabilities that will be brutally scoured away. You are brought to a barracks, a long, stark building that smells of sweat, dirt, and old straw. Inside, you see dozens of other boys, their heads all shaved just like yours will be. They are divided into packs. Parades lie, herds, like young wolves. You are stripped of the clothes your mother made for you. In their place, you are given a single garment, a simple, rough tunic. Later, as you get older, this will be replaced by just one cloak. The foreign IK you use, which you must wear year-round, winter and summer. It is your only piece of clothing, your blanket, and your pride. The first thing they do is shave your head. It's a rite of passage, erasing the last visible trace of your domestic life. You are no longer the son of your father and mother, you are a child of the barracks, a member of the pay. You are taught that your primary loyalty is no longer to your family, but to your peers, your elders, and above all, the state. The older boys, barely teenagers themselves, are put in charge of your herd. They have the authority to command you, to test you, and to punish you for any infraction, real or perceived. It's a strange fact of this system that it was almost universally applied. Even the sons of the 2 Spartan kings were required to go through the Agoge. They ate the same meager rations, slept on the same hard beds of reeds, and endured the same brutal discipline as you. The only exception was for the heir apparent of the Agiad or Eurypontid royal houses, but even this wasn't a firm rule. This universal submission to the system was key to its success. It ensured that every single Spartan male, from the lowest citizen to the future king, shared the same formative experience of hardship and loyalty. You spend your first night not in a bed, but on a pile of reeds that you were forced to gather yourself from the banks of the Eurotas River. You weren't allowed to use a knife, you had to snap them off with your bare hands. As you lie there, the hard reeds digging into your back, you can hear the sounds of the barracks around you, the hushed whispers, the occasional sob quickly stifled, the snores of the older boys. The warmth of your home feels like a distant dream. Historians today are still trying to piece together the full reality of the Agoge. Our main sources, like Xenophon and Plutarch, were not Spartans themselves. Xenophon was an Athenian admirer, and Plutarch was a Roman-era Greek writing centuries after Sparta's prime. They might have been presenting an idealized, almost philosophical blueprint of the system rather than its messy, day-to-day reality. Was it truly a relentless, Chief and Joshua boot camp from age 7, or were there moments of play, of actual childhood? That these stern accounts simply left out, the academic debate continues on how much of the story was the Spartan's own brutal self-mythology. But for you, lying on your bed of broken reeds, the only thing you know is that everything has changed. Your childhood didn't fade away. It was surgically removed. And your survival now depends on how quickly you can forget the boy you were and learn the rules of this new, savage game. The sun has barely risen over the mountains, but you're already awake, shaken from sleep by a sharp kick from an older boy. There is no gentle wake-up call in the Agoge. Your stomach is a hollow, baking pit. The hunger is constant. This is not an accident or a sign of scarcity, it's a deliberate part of your training. You are kept perpetually underfed. The elders believe that a lean, hungry boy will grow taller and be more agile. But there's another, more practical reason: it forces you to learn to fend for yourself. Your daily ration is a small portion of coarse bread and a cup of the infamous black broth. This broth, the melissaiomos, was legendary throughout Greece for being utterly disgusting. It was a concoction of pork, salt, vinegar, and pig's blood. A visitor from Sybaris, a city known for its luxury, once tasted it and declared that he finally understood why Spartans were so willing to die in battle, because death was preferable to eating this stuff. Yet, you gulp it down without a second thought, because it's all you have. It's raw, and it fills a tiny corner of the emptiness in your belly. But it's not enough. It's never enough. The system is designed to make you desperate. Stealing is officially forbidden and severely punished if you're caught. However, being a skillful thief is unofficially encouraged and praised. The logic is twisted, but, in the Spartan context, perfectly clear. A soldier needs to be cunning, resourceful, and capable of foraging in enemy territory. So the Agoge turns you into a thief. The crime is not stealing, the crime is getting caught. You and your pack move like shadows through the periphery of the city. Your targets are the gardens of private homes or the storerooms of the helots, the state-owned serfs who work the land. Your heart pounds in your chest, a frantic drum against your ribs. Every creak of a floorboard, every bark of a dog sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through you. You learn to move silently, to communicate with hand gestures, to gauge risk in a split second. One night, you manage to sneak into a helot storeroom. The air is thick with the earthy smell of potatoes and onions. You grab a handful of figs, their sticky sweetness a promise of paradise. But as you turn to leave, a floorboard groans under your foot. A man shouts from the next room. Panic seizes you. You run, blindly, desperately, clutching the stolen fruit. But it's too late. You are caught. The punishment is immediate and brutal. You are dragged back to the barracks, not just for the theft, but for the clumsiness of being discovered. The paidonomos is summoned. The older boys from your herd are there, their faces grim. They are the ones who will administer the punishment. You are stripped and held down. A whip made of leather thongs is brought out. The blows are not meant to simply sting, they are meant to tear the skin. The pain is white hot, blinding. You bite down on your lip, tasting your own blood, determined not to cry out. To scream would be the ultimate disgrace, a deeper failure than the theft itself. You are being punished for your lack of skill, and the lesson is being beaten into you: be better, be smarter, be invisible. This creates a bizarre and constant tension. You are a state-sponsored criminal, owned by a system that commands you to break its own rules. It's a strange and little-known aspect of your education that the Spartans even practiced a form of institutionalized hazing around food theft. In some cases, food would be deliberately placed in hard-to-reach places, turning the act of stealing into a competitive game, a test of agility and stealth. The question of why this system was so central to Spartan identity is something historians still ponder. Was it purely about creating self-sufficient soldiers, or was it also a psychological tool by forcing you to live outside the normal rules of society, to exist in a state of constant, low-level criminality? The Agoge bonded you and your peers together in a shared secret life. It alienated you from everyone outside the barracks, your family, the helots, the rest of the world. Your loyalty was forged not just in shared hardship, but in shared transgression. You were a pack, but gang, and your survival depended on one another. After the whipping, you're thrown back onto your red bed, your back a mess of bleeding welts. The stolen figs are long gone. Another boy, wordlessly, comes over and presses a small, hard piece of cheese into your hand, something he successfully stole earlier. You take it without a word. There is no sympathy in the gesture, only a quiet acknowledgement. He succeeded where you failed. Tomorrow, you will try again. The hunger is still there, gnawing at you, but now it's mixed with a cold, hard determination. You will not get caught again. As you navigate the brutal landscape of the Agoge, you quickly realize you are not alone. But your companionship is not one of equals. Soon after your arrival, you are assigned to an older warrior, a man in his 20s. He is your mentor, your patron, and the one responsible for your development. In Spartan terms, he is your Aristos, your lover, and you are his aides, the one being heard or protege. This relationship is the cornerstone of your advanced education, and it is far more complex and fraught with peril than simple mentorship. He is a man at the peak of his physical prowess. To you, a small, scrawny boy, he seems like a god. His body is a map of scars, each one a story of endurance and violence. He moves with a quiet confidence that you can only dream of. He is the one who will truly teach you the art of being a Spartan man. He takes a special interest in you, watching you during drills, correcting the way you hold your wooden practice spear, showing you how to balance on the balls of your feet. His attention is a double-edged sword. It offers protection. The other boys are less likely to bully you when you are under the patronage of a respected warrior. He might even slip you extra food, a piece of meat from his own meal at the communal dining hall, a prize more valuable than gold. In return, you owe him absolute obedience and devotion. Your successes bring him honor, your failures bring him shame. If you show cowardice in a training exercise, it is he who is fined or publicly shamed by the other men, for it is his responsibility to shape you into a proper Spartan. But the relationship extends beyond the training grounds. It is an intensely emotional, and often physical, bond. The lines are blurred. This institutionalized system, which later Greeks would call pederasty, was central to the hyper-masculine world of the barracks. In a society where men were isolated from women for the first 30 years of their lives, these relationships became the primary outlet for affection, intimacy, and desire. You spend most of your free time with him. He tells you stories of past battles, of the heroes of Thermopylae. He teaches you the laconic wit prized by Spartans, how to deliver a devastating insult with a handful of words. He is shaping not just your body, but your mind and your character. The bond is profound. He is the closest thing you have to a father figure, but the relationship is charged with an energy that is entirely different. The exact nature of the physical aspect of these relationships is one of the most debated topics among historians of Sparta. Ancient sources like Xenophon, a clear admirer of the Spartan system, insisted that the love between an Aristes and his aites was purely platonic and educational. He claimed that Lycurgus, the mythical Spartan lawgiver, had outlawed any physical consummation, viewing it as base and unseemly, like lusting after a family member. He argued the bond was about mutual admiration and the cultivation of virtue, not carnal desire. However, other ancient writers, like Plato and Aelian, present a very different picture. They suggest, or state outright, that these relationships were indeed sexual. They saw it as a common, accepted part of military life across many Greek city-states. And Sparta was no exception. The truth is likely somewhere in the murky middle. There was probably no single, universally applied rule. The nature of the relationship likely varied greatly depending on the individuals involved. Some may have been purely mentorships, while others were deeply romantic and sexual, and many more were a complex and confusing mix of both. The system's ambiguity likely allowed for a wide spectrum of expression, from noble guidance to outright exploitation. You feel this ambiguity every day. His praise makes you swell with pride. His disappointment is a physical blow. You strive to impress him, to earn his approval. You look up to him with a powerful mix of fear, reverence, and a deep, confusing affection. A strange and little-known detail is that this bond was considered a public affair. The pair would be seen together constantly, and the quality of their relationship was a matter of public opinion. If a boy grew into a cowardly or unimpressive man, the shame fell squarely on his mentor, who had failed in his most important duty. One evening, as you sit by a fire, nursing the bruises from the day's training, he tells you about the shield. He explains that a Spartan mother's parting words to her son are, "Come back with your shield, or run it." It means return victorious, or return dead. To drop your shield and flee was the ultimate act of cowardice, because the large shield, the auspice, protected not just you, but the man standing next to you in the phalanx. To lose it was to endanger the entire line. In that moment, looking at the firelight flicker in his intense eyes, you understand the Agoge, the hunger, the whippings, even the strange, powerful bond between you and him. It's all about the shield. It's all about preparing you to be a link in an unbreakable iron chain. The bonds you form with the other boys in your pack, your age laws, are not like the friendships of other lands. There is no room for softness or sentimentality here. Your relationships are forged in the crucible of shared misery, constant competition, and the ever-present threat of punishment. You are brothers, yes, but you are also rivals, each one of you vying for the top spot in a brutal hierarchy. Every day is a contest. Who can endure the most lashes without flinching, who can run the farthest without collapsing, who can steal the most food without being caught. Your worth is measured by your toughness, your cunning, and your absolute refusal to show pain or fear. You learn to read the subtle shifts in the pack's dynamics, to know who to trust and who to watch your back around. A common misconception is that the Agoge created a simple, unified brotherhood. In reality, it was a complex system of internal rivalries. The older boys, the Arenas, who were just about to become full citizens, were given whips and the authority to use them. They would deliberately instigate fights among the younger boys to test their mettle. You might be ordered to fight another boy in your pack for no reason other than to see who was stronger. Refusing was not an option. Not fighting with enough ferocity was a punishable offense. You learned to fight dirty. There are no rules in these brawls. You bite, you scratch, you pull hair. The goal is not just to win, but to dominate, to prove you have more fire, more aggression than your opponent. Afterwards, you might share a stolen piece of bread with the very boy whose lip you just split open. There's no lingering animosity. The fight was not personal, it was a required performance, a demonstration of your spirit for the older boys watching. It was a test. and you both pass simply by participating. This constant pressure cooker environment created an incredibly intense form of bonding. You have seen these boys at their absolute worst, crying from hunger in the dead of night, trembling with fear before a punishment, bleeding and bruised after a fight. You know their weaknesses, and they know yours, but you are all trapped in the same system, facing the same hardships. This shared experience creates a loyalty that transcends personal affection. You might not like every boy in your pack, but you are bound to him. In the shield role, in the phalanx, you will have to trust him with your life, and he with yours. This is where that trust is born, not in warmth and kindness, but in mutual survival. A fascinating and less discussed aspect of this is the role of music and dance. It sounds counterintuitive, but the Spartans, these ultimate warriors, were masters of the cruel dance. But, of course, their dancing was not for art's sake. It was yet another form of training. You spend hours learning the period. A war dance performed in full armor. It's a series of complex, synchronized movements simulating attack and defense. It builds stamina, agility, and, most importantly, the ability to move as a single, unified organism. Imagine a full company of boys, their bodies lean and hard, moving in perfect unison, mimicking the thrust of a spear and the parry of a shield. It was a terrifyingly beautiful display of disciplined violence. Historians continue to debate the psychological impact of this upbringing. Did this constant competition and brutalization create emotionally stunted sociopaths, as some Athenians claimed, or did it forge a unique form of collective identity? A band of brothers mentality so powerful that it made the Spartan army nearly invincible for centuries. The Spartans themselves left no psychological treatises. All we have are the outside observations and the results on the battlefield. The argument over whether this system built or broke the men it processed is still very much alive. Was the Spartan soldier a paragon of disciplined courage, or a victim of profound, state-sanctioned abuse? One afternoon, your pack is pitted against another in a game that is less a sport and more a controlled riot. The objective is to force the opposing team off a small island in the middle of the river. There are no rules. It's a chaotic mess of kicking, punching, and wrestling in the mud and water. You are pummeled, half-drowned, and utterly exhausted. But you and your pack fight with a single-minded ferocity. You work together, instinctively protecting each other's flanks, ganging up on stronger opponents, pulling your own boys back from the brink. You don't win, but you don't break. You fight until the airiness call a halt. That evening, as you huddle together for warmth, nursing your cuts and bruises, a new feeling settles among you. It's not friendship in the soft sense. It's something harder, something forged. It's the quiet understanding that while you will compete with each other for the rest of your lives, you will also stand together against any and all outside threats. You are a pack, and the pack endures. As you grow older and harder, the tests of your endurance become more formal, more ritualized, and infinitely more dangerous. The most infamous of these is the ordeal you face at the sanctuary of Artemis or Thea. Artemis, the goddess of the hunt in the wilderness, was a fitting patron for the youth of Sparta, but the rites performed in her name were a far cry from peaceful worship. They were a spectacle of blood and pain. The climax of the festival is a contest that is, on its face, absurd. Cheeses are stacked on the altar of the goddess. Your goal, along with the other boys, is to run from the edge of the sanctuary, snatch one of the cheeses, and get away. It sounds simple, almost comical. A cheese run. But there is a catch. The altar is surrounded by the airy nest, the older youths, and they are all armed with merciless whips. Their job is not to stop you from getting the cheese. In fact, they want you to try. Their job is to whip you, relentlessly, as you make your attempt. The air fills with the sharp crack of leather and the dull thud of the whips landing on bare flesh. This is not a punishment for a crime. This is a religious rite. A test of your courage and your ability to withstand pain. It's a public performance. The magistrates and elders of Sparta, even one of the kings, might be in attendance, watching. Your family is there, too. Your mother and father are in the crowd, and their honor is on the line. You take your possession, your heart hammering against your rib. The smell of dust and sweat hangs heavy in the air. You look at the altar, a distant stone slab shimmering in the heat. The cheeses seem impossibly far away. Then the signal is given. You run. You sprint across the bare earth, your focus narrowed to a single point. The first lash catches you across the shoulders, a searing line of fire. You stumble but don't fall. Another catches your legs. The pain is immense, but the adrenaline is a powerful anesthetic. You see a boy ahead of you go down, curling into a ball as the whips rain down on him. You leap over him. You can hear the crowd shouting, not in horror, but in encouragement. You hear your own name being called. Your father is urging you on, his voice filled with a fierce pride. This bizarre ritual has puzzled historians for ages. What was its purpose? Some believed it was a replacement for an even older rite of human sacrifice to the goddess. Instead of a life, the boys offered their blood and their pain. It was a test of manhood, certainly, but it was also a deeply religious act. The boy who endured the most lashes without flinching, who showed the most spirit, was hailed as the victor. The Bermonix. He brought immense honor to himself and his family. There are accounts of boys dying under the lash, preferring death to the dishonor of giving up. You reach the altar. Your back is a raw, bleeding mess. Your lungs burn. You lunge, your fingers brushing against the hard rind of a cheese. You grab it. Hold it tight to your chest as if it were the most precious jewel in the world, and you turn to run back. The return journey is even worse. The whips seem to find every raw nerve, but you don't drop the cheese. You can't. A particularly strange and little-known aspect of this ceremony involves the priestess of Artemis. She stands by the altar throughout the entire ordeal, holding a small wooden statue of the goddess. According to the writer Pausanias, this statue was believed to be light, but it would grow inexplicably heavy in the priestess's hands if the whip-bearers were slacking off, striking the boys to lightly out of pity or favoritism. The goddess herself, they believed, demanded the blood. The priestess would then berate the men for their softness, shaming them into striking harder. The academic world still debates the origins and meaning of this ritual. Was it a straightforward entrance test, a rite of passage designed to weed out the weak, or was it a complex piece of religious theater, a symbolic performance of Spartan values for the whole community to witness the truth? Is we will likely never fully know the intricate web of belief and tradition that lead to boys being flogged for a piece of cheese. You collapse at the finish line, dropping the cheese at the feet of a magistrate. You've done it. You're dizzy with pain and exhaustion. But through the haze, you see your mentor, your hostess, looking at you with a rare, undisguised look of approval. You see your father in the crowd, his face stern, but his eyes gleaming. You have not flinched. You have not failed. You have bled for the honor of Sparta, and in doing so, you have proven your worth. For now, amidst the relentless physical training and the brutal tests of endurance, another, more subtle form of discipline is beaten into you: the art of speaking. In a world that values action above all else, words are treated with deep suspicion. The Athenians, with their flowery rhetoric and endless philosophical debates, are seen as decadent and weak. In Sparta, you are taught that a real man does not waste his breath. This is the origin of the term laconic, from Laconia, the region where Sparta is located. It means to express a great deal with very few words. Your education in laconism begins early. In the barracks, if a boy speaks out of turn, uses too many words to answer a question, or makes a foolish remark, the punishment is swift. The Arenes are encouraged to bite the thumb of any boy who gives a clumsy answer. It's a strange, specific punishment, but it's effective. You learn to think before you speak, to distill your thoughts down to their absolute essence. Silence is valued far more than idle chatter. The elders of the city often visit the barracks or the public gymnasia to test the boys. They will ask pointed, tricky questions, not to gauge your knowledge, but to test your wit and your self-control. What is the most beautiful thing in the world, an elder might ask. An Athenian boy might launch into a speech about art or nature. You learn that the correct Spartan answer is something like, a well-ordered army. The goal is not to be philosophical, but to be correct, concise, and to demonstrate that your mind is focused on the proper Spartan virtues. You hear stories of the great laconic phrases of the past until they are etched into your memory. When King Philippi of Macedon, the father of Alexander the Great, was conquering Greece, he sent a threatening message to Sparta. It said, "You are advised to submit without further delay, for if I bring my army into your land, I will destroy your farms, slay your people, and raze your city." The Spartan Epiphors, the 5 elected leaders, sent back a reply of a single word if. The sheer, arrogant brevity of it is the absolute pinnacle of Spartan communication. It's a masterclass in psychological warfare, conveying confidence, defiance, and utter contempt without a single wasted syllable. This verbal austerity extends to all parts of your life. There is no room for excuses. If you fail a task, you are not to explain why. You are to accept your punishment in silence. Complaining is a sign of weakness, a verbal indulgence that is simply not tolerated. This creates a very particular social dynamic. Communication is direct, blunt, and stripped of all emotional padding. Humor exists, but it is dry, cutting, and delivered with a straight face. It's a form of wit that relies on understatement and irony, designed to test the intelligence of the listener. A lesser-known aspect of this is how it related to Spartan secrecy. Spartans were notoriously tight-lipped, not just with foreigners but also with each other. State matters were not to be discussed openly. This was especially true regarding their military. The historian Herodotus tells a story about a Spartan king who needed to send a secret message. He took a wooden writing tablet, scraped off the wax, wrote the message on the wood itself, and then covered it with fresh wax. The tablet appeared blank and passed through enemy hands without suspicion. This wasn't just clever, it was a reflection of the entire culture's obsession with hiding their intentions behind a blank or misleading exterior. Their speech was the same, a blank tablet that concealed a world of meaning underneath. Historians are still debating the full implications of this laconic culture. Was it a sign of a society with a rich inner life that simply chose not to express it, or was it a symptom of an intellectually impoverished culture? One that feared complex ideas and suppressed dissent by simply making it difficult to articulate this as the classic Athenian verses. Spartan debate. Was Athens a beacon of intellectual freedom? En Sparta dark, anti-intellectual military camp, or was Sparta simply a different kind of civilization? One that placed its values on deeds, not words, on community discipline, not individual expression. One day, your mentor, your Aristes, asks you why the law requires you to wear your hair long once you become a full citizen. A stark contrast to the shaved heads of your boyhood. You've heard the official reasons that it makes a handsome man more handsome and an ugly man more terrifying. You think for a moment. The threat of a bitten thumb still a fresh memory. You don't give the textbook answer. Instead, you say, because it's cheaper than a helmet's crest. A flicker of a smile touches his lips. Your answer was short, practical, and slightly insolent. It was perfectly Spartan. You are learning. You are learning to fight not just with a spear, but with silence. As you enter your late teens, you are on the cusp of manhood. You have survived the harshest trials of the Agoge, and you are now among the elite of your age group. For a select few, the most promising and ruthless of the young men, the new, terrifying phase of training begins. This is not a public ordeal like the cheese stealing at Artemis or Thea. This is a secret institution, a shadow war waged within Sparta's own borders. You are invited to join the Krypteia. The word means secret thing or hiding, and it functions as Sparta's secret police and death squad. Its existence was whispered about with fear and awe throughout the Greek world. Even Plato, who admired some aspects of Sparta, described it as a savagely harsh form of endurance training. The magistrates of Sparta, the EP whores, would select you and a handful of others. They give you nothing but a dagger. You are then sent out into the countryside with a single, chilling instruction to survive by any means necessary and to kill any helot you encounter at night. Helots are the state-owned serfs, the original inhabitants of Laconia and Messenia whom the Spartans had conquered centuries ago. They are not chattel slaves who can be bought and sold individually. They belong to the state and are assigned to work the land for Spartan citizens. They outnumber the Spartans by at least 7-1, maybe more, and they hate you. They hate everything you stand for. The entire Spartan way of life, your full-time military training, your communal meals, your freedom from agricultural labor is built upon the backs of this vast, subjugated population. The fear of a helot uprising is the dark, paranoid heart of Spartan society. It is the fear that justifies the Agoge, the constant training, and the brutal suppression. The Krypteia is the ultimate expression of this fear. You leave the relative security of the barracks and melt into the landscape. You are a ghost. During the day, you hide, sleeping in ditches or dense thickets. Anywhere you can't be seen. You must forage for your own food, putting all those years of training in theft and survival to the test. But it is at night that your real work begins. You move silently along the country roads, through the fields and villages where the helots live. You are a hunter, and your prey is human. You are looking for the strong ones, the defiant ones. Any helot who shows signs of leadership, who carries himself with too much pride, or who is simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, is a target. The goal is not just to eliminate potential rebels but to terrorize the entire population. You are the reason helots fear the dark. You are the monster in the shadows, a story they tell their children to ensure their obedience. A helot who is out at night is assumed to be up to no good, and you are his judge and executioner. One night, you come across a large, powerful-looking helot walking home from a neighboring village. His size alone makes him a threat. Your heart pounds, not with fear, but with a cold, predatory focus. This is the culmination of your entire life's training. You stalk him from the shadows, your dagger clutched in your hand. The attack is swift and silent. There is no honor in this, no battlefield glory. It is a quiet, brutal murder in the dark. You slip away before anyone knows you were there, leaving behind only a body and a fresh wave of terror. The existence and function of the Krypteia is one of the most controversial subjects in Spartan history. Was it, as Plato suggested, an extreme form of military training designed to teach stealth, survival, and a complete disregard for human life, or was it, as Plutarch later described, a formal institution of state terror, a declaration of war renewed each year by the EP horse against the helots, allowing any Spartan to kill a helot without incurring religious pollution? Some historians argue it was both. It was a brutally efficient system that served two purposes at once. It blooded the most promising young warriors, preparing them for the psychological toll of killing, and it kept the helot population in a perpetual state of fear and submission. A little-known but chilling theory suggests the Krypteia may have also served as a form of internal policing against Spartans themselves. A young man who was too individualistic, too resistant to authority, might be sent into this brutal environment not just to be tested, but to be eliminated. His death easily blamed on a helot reprisal. It was the perfect tool for a paranoid state obsessed with conformity. You spend months living this feral existence. You cross in. Your eyes become hardened, watchful, and you learn to kill without hesitation. When you are finally recalled to the barracks, you are different. The boy is well and truly gone, replaced by something cold and sharp. You have looked into the dark heart of the Spartan state and have become a part of it. You have been blooded. You are no longer just a soldier in training. You are a killer, ready to take your place in the phalanx and enforce the brutal order that allows Sparta to exist. The final stage of your education is complete. At the age of 20, you finally graduate from the Agoge. But you are not yet a full citizen. You are still a soldier. And your life is more regimented than ever. The next decade of your life will be spent in the constant company of men. Your graduation marks your entry into one of the most fundamental institutions of Spartan life, the S3X city, or common mess hall. This is not just a cafeteria, it is the core of your social, political, and military world. You must be elected into one of these dining clubs. The group consists of about 15 men, and the vote for a new member must be unanimous. This is your first real test as an adult, and it's a social one. Over the years, the men of the mess hall have watched you, judged your performance in the Agoge, your courage, your discipline, your wit. Now, they will decide if you're worthy to be one of them. The voting process is strangely primitive and, like so many things in Sparta, centered around food. As the members of the mess hall sit down for their meal, a steward comes around with a bowl. Each man takes a small piece of bread, and as the steward passes behind him, he drops it into the bowl. If he approves of the candidate, he drops the bread as it is. If he disapproves, he flattens it between his thumb and forefinger first. Even a single flattened piece of bread means you are rejected. It's a secret ballot, designed to allow men to blackball a candidate without causing a public feud. The pressure is immense. To be rejected by a mess hall is a profound public disgrace. Fortunately, your mentor, your hostess, is already a member of a respected mess. He has sponsored you, spoken for your character. You have proven yourself in the Agoge and perhaps even in the Krypteia. When the steward inspects the bowl, all the pieces of bread are whole. You are in. A wave of relief washes over you. You have found your new family. From this day forward, you will take every evening meal here. With these 14 men, this is your unit, your team, your brothers in arms. The bonds forged here are even stronger than those from the Agoge. Here, you are no longer boys in competition, but men sharing a common life. The state does not provide the food for these meals. Each member is required to contribute a precise amount of barley, wine, cheese, and figs from the produce of his ancestral land, which is farmed by his assigned helots. Failure to make your monthly contribution results in the loss of your citizenship rights. It's a harsh system that ensures only those with productive land can remain part of the elite. This is how the Spartan state linked land ownership directly to political power and military service. The atmosphere in the mess hall is a careful balance of military discipline and relaxed camaraderie. The food is simple. The black broth still a staple, but there is wine, mixed with water, and conversation. The talk is often of politics and war. The younger men are expected to listen while the older, more experienced warriors debate and tell stories. It's an ongoing, informal education in statecraft and military tactics. Jokes and witty insults, the laconic humor you've been trained in, are a key part of the dynamic. An older man might single you out, testing your composure with a sharp-tongued remark. You are expected to reply with a clever, self-deprecating, or equally sharp comeback. To take offense or to fail to respond with wit is a sign of poor character. It's a way of toughening your skin, of teaching you to remain cool under social pressure, just as you would under enemy fire. A strange and little discussed fact about the mess hall is its role in regulating drunkenness. While the Spartans drank wine daily, public drunkenness was considered an ultimate disgrace, a loss of the self-control they prized so highly. To teach the younger men this lesson, they would sometimes force a helot to drink a large quantity of unmixed wine and then bring him into the mess hall. They would point to the stumbling, incoherent man and say, "This is what happens when a man loses control of himself." It was a cruel, dehumanizing lesson, using a helot's forced degradation as a living example of what a Spartan must never become. Historians are still trying to understand the full social significance of the Syria. It was clearly more than just a military mess. It was a tool for social control, enforcing conformity through peer pressure. It was a political forum, where public opinion was shaped, and it was a surrogate family, replacing the emotional ties of a domestic household with the loyalty of a military unit. For a Spartan man, his standing in his mess was more important than his standing in his own home. You sit there, night after night, sharing the same food, the same wine, the same stories. You are learning what it means to be a homo ios, one of the similar race or peers. The term itself implies that you are all equal, all part of a unified brotherhood. It's a powerful ideal, and the mess hall is where that ideal is performed and reinforced every single day. You are not just eating dinner, you are reaffirming your identity, your loyalty, and your place in the unbreakable wall of Spartan shields. By your early 20s, the transformation is complete. The boy who was taken from his mother at age 7 is a distant memory, a ghost of another life. You have been forged in the fires of the Agoge, tested by the whips at Artemis's altar, and blooded in the shadows of the countryside. You have been elected to a mess hall and have taken your place among your peers. Now, you stand as a Spartan hoplite, a heavy infantryman, the living embodiment of your city-state's power and its fearsome reputation. Your equipment is your identity. It is also incredibly expensive, a cost you or your family must bear. The centerpiece is the spear, the large, concave shield. It's made of wood, covered in a thin layer of bronze, and weighs around 30 pounds. It's not designed to be wielded nimbly with one arm. You thrust your left forearm through a central strap, the pull pecs, and grapple at the handle at the rim, the anti-lobby. This design distributes the weight across your shoulder and forces you to hold it steady, covering you from chin to knee. More importantly, its wide-brimmed edge covers the unprotected right side of the man to your left. The spear is not a personal piece of equipment, it is a component of a collective wall. Your primary weapon is the dory, a spear that is roughly 7 to 9 feet long, with an iron spearhead and a bronze butt spike called a sorotur, or lizard killer. The butt spike allows you to stand the spear up on the ground and serves as a backup weapon if the main point breaks. You are trained to use it overhand, a downward stabbing motion that is brutally effective in the tight press of the phalanx. Your secondary weapon is the S3X, a short, double-edged sword. It's a last-ditch weapon, used only when the spear is broken or the phalanx is shattered into individual combat. The Spartan's preference for the spear is a matter of tactical doctrine. A famous story tells of a Spartan who was asked why their swords were so short. He replied, "So we can get closer to the enemy." It's a classic piece of laconic bravado. Finally, there is your armor. You wear a bronze helmet, often of the Corinthian style, which covers the entire head and face, leaving only narrow slits for your eyes and mouth. It offers incredible protection but severely restricts vision and hearing, making you even more dependent on the men around you. You wear a bronze cuirass, or chest plate, molded to the shape of a muscular torso, a piece of psychological warfare in itself, and bronze greaves to protect your shins. Your only clothing is the distinctive crimson cloak, the foreign IKUs. The Spartans said they chose red to mask the sight of their own blood, which might unnerve their comrades or encourage the enemy. All of this training, all of this equipment, comes together in the phalanx. You stand shoulder to shoulder with the men from your mess hall, your shields interlocking to form a solid wall of wooden bronze, 8 rows deep, 100 men wide. The phalanx is a terrifying human act. You learn to march in perfect step, a skill honed by those choral dances of your youth, often to the sound of pipes. The advance of a Spartan phalanx, silent except for the rhythmic tramp of feet and the high-pitched ski or yell of the olos, was said to be one of the most frightening sights in the ancient world. A little-known fact about Spartan military perfectionism is their almost obsessive focus on hair. As a boy, your head was shaved, but as a full-fledged warrior, You are required to grow your hair long. Before a battle, you will sit down, calmly and deliberately, and comb and dress your long hair, arranging it in elaborate braids. To outsiders, this looked like vanity. A Persian scout before the Battle of Thermopylae reported back to Xerxes that the Spartans were in front of their camp, exercising them, combing their hair. Xerxes laughed, thinking it was a sign of foolishness. But a Greek advisor warned him, "These men have come to fight us for this pass, and for that contest, they are preparing themselves, for it is their custom that when they are about to risk their lives, they arrange their hair." It was a ritual of preparation, a common deliberate act of beautifying themselves for a glorious death. The question of Spartan invincibility is one that military historians still actively debate. For a long time, the Spartan army was considered unbeatable on land. But was this because each individual Spartan was a super soldier, or was it due to their superior discipline, cohesion, and the psychological terror they inspired in their opponents? The evidence suggests the latter. An individual Spartan was certainly tough, but his true strength came from his absolute, unquestioning trust in the men standing beside him. The Agoge did not create 10 Daro individual heroes, it created one single, unbreakable machine. You are that machine now, standing in the ranks. The weight of the shield on your arm, the helmet muffling the world around you. You feel a sense of absolute unity. The man to your right is the one you fought with as a boy. The man to your left is the one who shares your bread and wine every night. Your fear, your individuality, it all dissolves into the collective will of the phalanx. You are no longer just you. You are a single cell in the great iron body of Sparta, ready to move forward, to hold the line, to kill, and to die. You are now in your 20s, a perfect soldier, a member of a mess, a cog in the great Spartan machine. Your life is ordered, disciplined, and entirely focused on the state. But the state now requires something new from you. It is not enough for you to be a warrior. You must also be a breeder. The state needs more soldiers to replace the ones that fall in battle. And your participation is not optional. The state commands you to marry. There is no romance in this process. There is no courtship, no serenades, no whispered sweet nothings. Love, as other Greeks might understand it, is a frivolous, dangerously individualistic emotion. Your marriage is a civic duty, a pragmatic transaction for the purpose of procreation. The Spartan lawgiver like Agoge, it was said, put a mark of disgrace on men who remained bachelors for too long. They were subject to public ridicule, sometimes forced to march around the winter marketplace naked, singing a song about how they were being justly punished for disobeying the laws. The pressure to marry is immense, and it comes not from a desire for personal happiness, but from the state's insatiable need for raw material strong, healthy babies. You are expected to marry a woman of your own class, a daughter of a Spartan citizen. The goal is to produce the best possible offspring, a concept that borders on a state-run eugenics program. The health and physical fitness of your potential wife are far more important than her beauty, her dowry, or her personality. A strong woman, the logic goes, will produce strong children. This is a radical departure from the rest of the Greek world, where respectable women were often sequestered, kept pale and unfit, their value lying in their chastity and their father's wealth. So how do you choose a wife in this bizarre marketplace of genetics? The process itself is shrouded in some mystery and debate. One of the strangest accounts, relayed by the writer Plutarch, describes a form of marriage by capture. He claims that you and the other young men would go to a dark room where all the young married girls were gathered. You would then grope around in the darkness and seize a bride, carrying her off without knowing what she looked like. You would literally capture your wife. This story is so strange that many historians are skeptical. Was it a literal description of the process, or was it a symbolic, ritualized abduction? A nod to a more primitive time. It's hard to imagine a society so obsessed with producing perfect offspring would leave the selection of a genetic partner to a literal blind grab in the dark. The academic debate continues: was this a real practice, a garbled exaggeration, or a symbolic ritual whose true meaning is lost to us? A more likely scenario is that marriages were arranged between families, as they were in the rest of Greece, but with a uniquely Spartan focus. Your father and the girl's father would agree on the match based on the health, lineage, and physical condition of both you and her. The marriage by capture might have been a ritualized reenactment that followed the practical arrangement, a piece of theater to formalize the union. Regardless of the exact method, the choice is made. A bride has been selected for you. You may have seen her before, exercising with the other girls in the public grounds, but you do not know her. You have never had a private conversation. You do not know the sound of her or for the nature of her thoughts. She is, for all intents and purposes, a stranger, a healthy, well-bred stranger, but a stranger nonetheless. A little-known aspect of Spartan marriage was the timing. Men were expected to marry when they were in their physical prime, around the age of 30. However, the girls were married much younger, likely in their late teens. But the state encouraged men to begin this process earlier, in their 20s, while they were still living in the barracks. This created a peculiar and clandestine form of marriage, one that was intentionally designed to be difficult and infrequent, which we will explore next. You are now officially betrothed. There is no great celebration, no public feast. Your life does not change. You still sleep in the barracks. You still eat every meal at your mess. You are a soldier, first and foremost. But now you have a new duty, a secret one, that you must perform under the cover of darkness. The state has given you an order. Now you must execute it. Now that a match has been made, your focus turns to the qualities of your future wife. This is not a matter of personal preference, it is a cold, hard calculation based on the values of your society. You are not looking for a companion to share your thoughts with, nor a partner to manage your household in the traditional Greek sense. You are looking for a champion broodmare. Spartan women are unlike any others in the Hellenic world. While Athenian women are confined to the home, kept out of the sun, and taught skills like weaving, your future wife has been raised in a system that is, in its own way, as rigorous as the Agoge. From a young age, she was encouraged to participate in athletics. She ran, she wrestled, she threw the discus and the javelin, often exercising naked alongside the boys. The purpose of this was singular: to make her body strong, fit, and capable of bearing healthy, robust children. Xenophon wrote that Lycurgus believed that if both parents were strong, their offspring would be even more vigorous. You would have seen these girls exercising. They are not pale and demure. Their skin is browned by the sun. Their muscles are defined. They carry themselves with a confidence that would be shocking to an Athenian or a Corinthian. They are famously beautiful, but their beauty is one of strength and vitality, not delicate fragility. They are also known for being as sharp-tongued and laconic as the men. A famous story tells of a foreign woman saying to Agoge, the wife of King Leonidas, "You Spartan women are the only ones who can rule men." Gorgo's reply was swift and logical: because we are the only ones who give birth to men. So, as you consider your chosen bride, these are the qualities you are looking for. Is her family known for producing strong warriors? Does she herself have a reputation for athletic prowess? Is she tall and well-built? These are the attributes that matter. A dowry, which is central to marriages in other cities, is of little concern in Sparta. Land is held by families and passed down, and wealth is officially frowned upon. Her value is in her genes, not her father's assets. There's a strange contradiction here. On one hand, the state is ordering you to procreate for its own benefit. On the other, the health and vigor of the individual woman are given immense importance. This led to a level of freedom for Spartan women that was unparalleled. They were educated. They could own and inherit property, and they managed the estates while the men were busy with their military duties. They were not seen as intellectually inferior, just different. Their role was as vital to the state as yours was, and they knew it. This leads to a little known, and rather startling, social dynamic. Because Spartan women were so highly valued for their reproductive capabilities, they seem to have had a significant degree of choice in their partners, even within the arranged system. Ancient sources tell tales of women rejecting suitors or having affairs, seemingly with fewer social repercussions than elsewhere in Greece. The state's overwhelming desire for children, any children, as long as they were healthy, sometimes trumped conventional morality. The ultimate goal was a successful pregnancy, and if a husband was old, weak, or otherwise unable to produce a strong child, a woman might seek a better partner, a practice we'll delve into later. Historians are still untangling the complex status of women in Sparta. Were they truly liberated, powerful figures who commanded respect in a male-dominated world, or were they simply prized livestock, valued only for their ability to breed? Their freedom merely a side effect of a eugenics program? The truth is likely a complex mix of both. They were subjected to the will of the state, just like the men. But the nature of their assigned duty, producing the next generation, gave them a unique form of power and agency that was unthinkable in other parts of the ancient world. You do not choose your wife based on love. You don't even really choose her at all, in the modern sense. The choice is made for you, by your family and by the state, based on a brutal, biological calculus. You are being paired with a woman who has been groomed since birth for this exact purpose. She is not your soulmate. She is your genetic counterpart, the other half of an equation designed to produce a soldier. Your union will not be a partnership of equals in the way we understand it. It will be the fusion of two state-sanctioned breeding programs, a calculated investment in the future of Sparta, and the consummation of this investment will be as strange and ritualized as everything else in your life. The night of your wedding arrives, but it feels nothing like a celebration. There is no joyous feast, no gathering of families, no public ceremony to mark the occasion. Your marriage, in its initial stages, is a clandestine affair, shrouded in ritual and secrecy, while you are dining at your mess hall with your comrades, as you do every night. Your bride is being prepared for you. Her preparation is a bizarre and symbolic transformation. Her bridesmaid, known as the Nymphochemos, takes her into a darkened room. First, her head is shaved, completely, down to the scalp. The long hair that was a mark of her maiden-like status is gone. Then, she is dressed not in a beautiful bridal gown, but in a man's cloak and sandals. She is stripped of her overt femininity and made to look, in the dim light, like one of the boys from the Agoge. She is then left alone in the dark, on a pallet on the floor, to wait. This ritual has fascinated and puzzled historians for centuries. What is the meaning behind the strange cross-dressing and head-shaving? There are several competing theories. One idea is that it was designed to ease the transition for you, the husband. You have spent your entire life in an exclusively male environment. The sight of a fully feminine woman might have been shocking or alien. By making your bride look more like a boy, the ritual might have made the first encounter less intimidating, more familiar. It bridged the gap between the homoerotic world of the barracks and the new, heterosexual duty you were about to perform. Another theory suggests it was a rite of passage for the bride herself. By shedding her long hair and female clothing, she was symbolically leaving her girlhood behind and entering a new phase of life. She was being remade, transformed from a maiden into a wife, her new identity marked by this style, almost brutal, ritual. A third, more pragmatic interpretation is that it was all about concealment. Your marriage was a secret. Shaving her head and dressing her in a man's cloak would make it easier to smuggle her into a new household without drawing attention. It was a practical disguise for a forbidden act. The academic debate on this continues, with scholars arguing over the symbolic, psychological, and practical reasons for this cross-gendered ritual. Was it about easing male anxiety, marking female transition, or simply practical subterfuge? Perhaps it was all three. A complex ritual layered with multiple meanings. A particularly strange and lesser-known detail from some accounts suggests that the capture of the bride, which we discussed earlier, happened at the stage It might not have been a blind grab in a room full of girls, but a ritualized abduction of this specific, prepared bride. You would break and unabduct her from her bridesmaid's care, adding a layer of symbolic, masculine force to the beginning of the union. This act of theft would mirror the lessons of your youth, where taking what you wanted was a sign of strength, so long as you were not caught. So, you finish your meal at the mess. You share the usual black broth and coarse bread with your comrades. You engage in the typical laconic banter. No one mentions that this is your wedding night. To do so would be improper. It is a private duty, not a public celebration. When the time is right, under the cover of a moonless night, you will slip away from the barracks. Your life as a husband is about to begin, not with a party, but with a stealth mission. You are not going to a wedding bed. You are heading to a secret rendezvous. An act of procreation disguised as an illicit encounter. The woman waiting for you is a stranger, made even more alien by her shaved head and masculine attire. This is Spartan marriage, a strange, unsettling fusion of duty, ritual, and stealth. You move through the unlit streets of Sparta like a shadow. This is a familiar feeling, a skill honed during your time in the Agoge and the Krypteia. You are not a groom going to his bride, you are an infiltrator on a mission. Your destination is the house where she is waiting. You must not be seen. The entire purpose of this clandestine arrangement is to ensure that your primary life remains in the barracks. Your duty to the state as a soldier must not be compromised by the distractions of domestic life. You find the house and slip inside. The room is dark. You can barely make out the form of your new wife, lying on a simple pallet on the floor. She is the woman with the shaved head, dressed in a man's cloak. There is no tender exchange of words, no romantic prelude. Your encounter is brief, furtive, and purely functional. You are there for one reason: to impregnate her. The Spartans believed, according to Xenophon and Plutarch, that this system of infrequent and difficult encounters would heighten desire and lead to more vigorous and healthy offspring. They thought that if a husband and wife were constantly together, they would become complacent and their passion would cool, resulting in weaker children. By making the act of consummation a stolen, risky affair, they believed they were concentrating its procreative power. It was a strange kind of logic, applying the principles of military discipline and scarcity to human biology. After a short time, you leave. You must be back in the barracks before dawn, back in your place among your comrades. No one should know you were gone. You return to your bed of reeds, your mind still processing the strange, almost transcational encounter. In the morning, you will rise for training as if nothing has happened. Your wife, meanwhile, remains in her home. You will not see her in the daylight. You will not share a meal with her. You will not have a conversation with her. This pattern continues for months, perhaps even years. You will live a double life. By day, you are a soldier, living on training with your messmates. By night, you are a secret husband, sneaking out to perform your civic duty. Many men, it was said, became fathers before they had ever seen their wives' faces in the light of day. The relationship is defined by its secrecy and its singular purpose. A fascinating and rarely discussed consequence of this system was the creation of a unique social space for Spartan women. While you are living in the barracks, your wife is managing her household, overseeing the helots on the family kairos, the plot of land, and living a life largely independent of male supervision. She is the mistress of the domestic sphere in a way that no Athenian woman ever could be. This separation, designed to keep you focused on military matters, inadvertently empowered her. The academic world still grapples with the psychological effects of this arrangement. How did it shape the emotional landscape of a Spartan marriage? Did real affection ever have a chance to grow in these stolen moments in the dark, or was the relationship permanently stunted, forever defined by its functional, clandestine beginnings? Some scholars argue that this separation fostered a deep respect and a different kind of love, one based on mutual duty to the state. Others contend that it created a profound emotional gulf between men and women, making true intimacy impossible and reinforcing the primary emotional bond between a man and his male comrades. This suppression of heterosexual life is a key element in understanding Spartan society. The state actively prioritized the bonds of the phalanx over the bonds of the family. You continue your nocturnal visits, a creature of the night. The success of your mission will not be measured in pleasure or emotional connection, but in a visible, biological outcome. You are waiting for the day when your wife's belly begins to swell. That is the only sign that matters. It is the proof that you have fulfilled your duty to the state. You have planted the seed. No, you can only wait and see if it will bear fruit deemed worthy of Sparta. Weeks turn into months. Your life remains a study in stark contrasts. The daylight hours are filled with the sweat, grime, and rigid camaraderie of the barracks. The nights are punctuated by these furtive, silent visits to a woman you barely know. You and your wife are, in every practical sense, strangers. You are co-conspirators in a state-mandated plot to produce a child, not partners in a shared life. The emotional distance between you is a feature, not a bug, of the Spartan system. The state does not want you to form a deep, personal attachment to your wife. Such an attachment would be a distraction. It could foster loyalty to your family above your loyalty to the state. It might make you hesitate on the battlefield, thinking of the woman and child you would leave behind. The entire structure of your society is designed to prevent this. Your primary emotional bonds are meant to be with the men of your mess hall, the brothers who will stand beside you in the shield wall. Your wife is a duty, your comrades are your life. This creates a peculiar dynamic. In the rest of Greece, the man's home, his oikos, is his domain. His wife manages it, but he is its master. For you, this is not the case. Until you are 30, you have no home life. Your wife's world and your world are almost entirely separate. You are a visitor in her life, and she is an unseen presence in yours. You might pass her on the street during the day, and a subtle, almost imperceptible nod might be your only interaction. This enforced separation has led some historians to suggest that the concepts of love and affection must have manifested in very different ways in Sparta. Perhaps love wasn't about intimacy and shared experience, but about mutual respect for each other's roles. You respect her for her strength and her ability to produce strong children. She respects you for your courage and your devotion to the state. It's a love born of shared ideology, not shared intimacy. A cold, practical kind of love, if it can be called that at all. Of course, it's impossible to know what happened behind closed doors. In those brief, dark encounters, human nature is a stubborn thing. It's plausible, even likely, that genuine affection and tenderness did blossom for some couples, despite the system's best efforts to prevent it. But these would have been exceptions. Small acts of personal rebellion against a state that demanded emotional conformity. A very strange and little-known custom that highlights the stranger dynamic is the Spartan view on jealousy. Plutarch claims that the Spartans considered it ridiculous and barbaric for a man to be possessively jealous of his wife. A man's wife was, first and foremost, a potential mother for the state. Her reproductive capacity was a community asset, not his private property. This attitude led to one of the most shocking and controversial practices in Spartan society, which we will explore in more detail later: the practice of wife sharing. The idea that another man might impregnate your wife was not necessarily a source of dishonor, provided it was done for the right reasons to produce a superior child for Sparta. This demonstrates just how far the concept of marriage was removed from personal possession and emotional fidelity. The academic debate over the emotional reality of Spartan marriage is, by its very nature, speculative. We have no letters, no diaries, no personal accounts from a Spartan husband or wife. We only have the descriptions of outsiders like Xenophon and Plutarch, who were often writing with their own philosophical agendas. They might have exaggerated the cold, transactional nature of Spartan marriage to make a point about discipline and the ideal state. or they might have been accurately describing a society that had successfully subordinated the most fundamental human relationships to the needs of the collective. The truth of whether these men and women felt like cogs in a machine or found a way to build a meaningful connection within its rigid confines is likely lost forever. For you, the reality is simple. You continue your secret visits. You continue to live in the barracks. You are a husband in name, a procreator in function, but a soldier in soul. Your wife remains a shadowy figure, a partner in a biological imperative. You are two strangers, bound by law and by bloodline, working together in the dark to forge the next link in the chain of Spartan history. Eventually, the clandestine nights and the state-mandated procreation bear fruit. Your wife is pregnant. This is the moment your strange union was designed for. It is a success, but not yet a victory. The final product has not yet been inspected. You feel a sense of pride, but it's a public, civic pride, not a private, paternal joy. You have done your duty. You have contributed a potential new soldier to the state. Your standing in the community is unhallowed. But the child, from the moment of its conception, does not belong to you. It belongs to Sparta. The pregnancy progresses, and your wife, like all Spartan women, is encouraged to continue a regimen of light exercise and proper nutrition. A healthy mother, it is believed, makes a healthy baby. There is no coddling, no confinement. She is expected to be as tough and resilient in pregnancy as she is at all other times. When the day of the birth arrives, it is an affair for the women. You are not present. You remain with your messmates, carrying on with your duties as if it were any other day. The news is brought to you when it is over. You have a child, a son. Your first meeting with your son is not a tender, private moment. Instead, it is a horrifying echo of your own birth. You, the father, have no legal claim over the child. You cannot decide its fate. Once again, the state intervenes. The baby is taken from its mother, wrapped in swaddling clothes, and brought before the same council of elders that judged you 2 decades earlier. You stand by, a silent observer, as your own child is subjected to the same terrifying quality control. The elders, their faces as grim and unyielding as ever, examine the infant. They are looking for the same things they looked for in you: strength, perfection, a lack of any discernible flaw. They turn the baby over, check its limbs, its spine. They might even perform the bizarre wine bath test, watching for any sign of weakness or seizure. Your heart is in your throat. This tiny creature, your own flesh and blood, is being assessed like an object. Every instinct you might have to protect it, to cradle it, is suppressed by a lifetime of training. You must show no emotion. You must accept the verdict of the elders, whatever it may be. To protest would be to question the wisdom of the state, an unthinkable act of treason. This is the ultimate expression of Spartan collectivism. The family unit is completely subordinate to the needs of the city-state. Children are not the continuation of a family line in the personal sense. They are a resource, an investment in the future security of Sparta. This philosophy is what allowed the state to justify a practice that other Greeks found abhorrent. A lesser known, but poignant detail about Spartan parenting relates to the naming of the child. If the child was approved, it would be named. While we don't know the exact ceremonies, we know that Spartan names often reflected their values. Names like Leonidas, son of a lion, or Agestus, leader of the people, were common. However, there's a fascinating and slightly heartbreaking custom associated with death. A Spartan's name was only allowed to be inscribed on their tombstone under 2 conditions for a man: if he died in battle, for a woman, if she died in childbirth. This tells you everything you need to know about what the state valued. Both were seen as the ultimate sacrifice for the good of Sparta, or giving your life in its defense, or giving your life in the act of creating a new defender. The academic debate about the infanticide at the Agoge continues to rage, as we discussed before. Was it a routine, systematic culling of any infant deemed less than perfect, or was it a more rare occurrence? reserved for severe deformities. Its frequency exaggerated by later authors to make the Spartans seem more monstrously disciplined. The archaeological evidence remains scant, leaving the question open. But whether it happened to one child or 1,000, the principle remains the same. The state, not the parents, held the power of life and death. The elder gives a final, curt nod. The inspection is over. The baby is deemed worthy. He is handed back to a nurse to be returned to his mother. You feel a release of tension so profound it almost makes you dizzy. Your son is allowed to leave. He has passed his first test. He has been accepted as a future citizen, a future hoplite. He will be raised by his mother for 7 years. And then, just like you, he will be taken by the state. The cycle will begin anew. You look at the tiny infant, and you see not just your son, but your own past and his brutal future, stretching out before him. Your son is healthy, and you have fulfilled your primary duty. But the Spartan state's obsession with eugenics does not end with a single successful birth. The goal is not just to produce children, but to produce the best possible children. This relentless pursuit of genetic perfection leads to one of the most shocking and daily practices of your society, the concept of wife sharing. This is not a system of casual infidelity or promiscuity. It is a calculated, often openly arranged, practice of loaning your wife to another man for the purpose of procreation. It is a concept that strikes at the heart of what most cultures consider the sacred bond of marriage. But, in Sparta, it is considered logical, even patriotic. The logic, as described by writers like Xenophon and Plutarch, is simple. Imagine you are a man of good standing, but perhaps you are getting older, or you are not as physically impressive as some of your peers. You have a young, healthy, beautiful wife. You look across the training grounds and you see another Spartan, a man in his prime, a celebrated warrior, known for his strength, courage, and perfect physique. You might look at this man and think, a child from him and my wife would be a superior product. It would be a greater asset to the state. So, you might approach this man, or just as likely, he might approach you. The arrangement is made. It is not a shameful secret. It is a rational decision made between men for the good of the community. You willingly allow this other man, the superior seed, to have relations with your wife. Any child born from this union is not considered illegitimate. It is not a bastard. It is legally and socially recognized as your own child. You will raise it as your own, and it will inherit your property and your name. You have not been cuckolded, you have been patriotic. You have sacrificed your personal pride and possessiveness for the greater good of producing a better soldier for Sparta. This practice also worked in reverse. If an older man had a young wife and did not want to see her reproductive potential wasted, he might actively seek out a younger, more vigorous man to father children that he would then raise as his own. The most famous example of this involves one of the Spartan kings, Anaxandridas II. He had a wife he loved but who was barren. The ephors, the state officials, demanded that he set her aside and take another wife to produce an heir. He refused to divorce his first wife, so he made a deal. He took a second wife, a practice highly unusual for Spartans, and she bore him the future king, Clemens I. Later, his first wife, the one thought to be barren, miraculously gave birth to a son, Dorius. This story, while about bigamy and not wife sharing, shows the immense pressure from the state to produce heirs, and the unusual solutions that were considered acceptable. A little-known and even more radical extension of this idea, according to some ancient sources, was that an unmarried man of exceptional quality could approach a married woman and request that she bear his child. If her husband consented, the arrangement would proceed. This elevated the production of strong children above all other social conventions, even the basic structure of the family unit. Of course, historians debate the frequency and exact nature of this practice. Was it a common, everyday occurrence, or was it an option reserved for the ruling class and the most elite warriors? Was it always a formal arrangement between men, or did it sometimes provide a social justification for what were, in reality, Private affairs, the line between state-sanctioned eugenics and simple human desire can be very thin. It's possible the system was more complex than our sources let on, with a wide range of motivations and arrangements falling under the general umbrella of producing good children for the state. This complete subjugation of personal relationships to the needs of the collective is perhaps the most difficult aspect of Spartan life for a modern mind to comprehend. It requires a fundamental rewiring of concepts like love, fidelity, jealousy, and fatherhood. Your wife is not truly yours. Your children are not truly yours. They are assets of the state, and their purpose is to strengthen the collective. You look at your wife. You have gone through the strange rituals of marriage, the clandestine meetings. You have a son together. But you know that if a more impressive specimen of Spartan manhood were to desire her, it would be your civic duty to at least consider the proposition. Your marriage is not a fortress of two. It is a permeable institution, open to intervention from the state and the community in the relentless, obsessive pursuit of a perfect future. You are immersed in a system built on a single, cold, and unwavering logic. The individual is nothing, the state is everything. This is the core principle of Spartan eugenics. The word eugenics, a modern term, fits so perfectly because your society is one of the earliest and most thorough examples of a state attempting to direct human evolution for a specific purpose. That purpose is not happiness, or enlightenment, or prosperity. It is military supremacy. From the moment of your birth, you are taught that you are not an individual soul on a personal journey. You are a biological unit, a piece of raw material to be molded, improved, and, if necessary, discarded for the benefit of the collective. Your body is not your own. It is a weapon, owned and maintained by the state. Your ability to feel pain is a flaw to be overcome. Your ability to feel fear is a weakness to be purged. Your ability to feel love is a distraction to be managed. This ideology is reinforced in every aspect of your life. At the mess hall, you are not just sharing food, you are part of a single organism. In the phalanx, you are not just fighting alongside other men, you are a single, interlocking shield wall. When you marry, you are not forming a private union, you are fulfilling a state-sanctioned reproductive quota. The logic extends to the very concept of parenthood. The children you produce are not yours in any meaningful sense. They are the state's next generation of assets. This is why the elders, not the fathers, decide if an infant lives or dies. It is why the state, not the family, takes over a boy's education at age 7. It is why a man can lend his wife to another to produce a better child, and why the resulting offspring is accepted without shame. The child's genetic quality and its future utility to the state are the only things that matter. The biological parentage is a secondary, almost trivial, detail. This way of thinking has a profound effect on your psyche. You develop a sense of fatalism. Your life has a clear, predetermined purpose. You are born to be a soldier, to fight for Sparta, and to die for Sparta. This clarity can be a source of immense strength and courage. It simplifies the world. You do not have to wrestle with existential questions about the meaning of life. The meaning has been given to you. But it also creates a society built on a foundation of anxiety. The entire eugenics program, from the inspection of infants to the practice of wife sharing, stems from a deep-seated demographic fear. The number of full Spartan citizens, is always precariously small. You are a tiny elite, ruling over a vast and resentful population of helots. Every Spartan life lost in battle, to disease, or to an accident is a devastating blow to the state's security. Every baby born weak or deformed is a threat to the future. The obsession with quality is a direct result of the crisis of quantity. A little-known but powerful illustration of this is the Spartan inheritance system. Land, the basis of a citizen's wealth and status, was meant to be passed down. However, if a family failed to produce a male heir, the land could be inherited by a daughter. This made Spartan women, particularly Solaresses, incredibly wealthy and powerful landowners, By Aristotle's time, in the 4th century BC, he claimed that women owned 2/5 of all the land in Sparta. This was an unintended consequence of the very system designed to control reproduction. The state's obsession with producing male heirs, combined with the high mortality rate for men in battle, ironically led to a massive transfer of economic power into the hands of women. Historians continue to debate the long-term effectiveness of this eugenic system. In the short term, it was brutally effective. It produced the most feared army in the Greek world for several centuries. But was it sustainable? Many scholars argue that the system was ultimately a failure. The criteria for citizenship were so strict, the culling of infants so ruthless even if only occasional, and the losses in war so heavy, that the number of full Spartan citizens entered a state of irreversible decline. The system was too successful at eliminating undesirables and too demanding of its elites. It was a machine that slowly consumed its own fuel. By the time of Aristotle, the number of homoi had dwindled to fewer than 1,000. The obsession with purity had led to extinction. You, however, are living at the height of the system's power. You do not see the long-term demographic collapse. You see the logic, the order, the strength. You accept that your life, your wife's body, and your children's future are all subservient to the cold, hard calculus of the state. It is a brutal logic, but it is the only one you have ever known. It is the price of being Spartan. While you are living this life of extreme martial discipline, confined to the barracks and the mess hall, the women of your society are experiencing a reality that is radically different from that of their sisters in Athens, Corinth, or Thebes. Though you might view your wife primarily as a reproductive vessel for the state, she enjoys a level of freedom, education, and public influence that would be utterly scandalous elsewhere in Greece. From her girlhood, a Spartan woman's life is one of public activity, while an Athenian girl is hidden away in the women's quarters, learning to weave and run a household. Your wife was out in the sun, competing in athletics. She was educated. She learned to read and write, to play musical instruments, and to dance in the great public choruses. This was not for her personal enrichment, it was to make her a worthy mother of Spartan men and a capable guardian of Spartan values. An educated woman, it was believed, could better instill the principles of courage and duty in her children. Once married, her autonomy increases, with you living in the barracks until the age of 30. She is the undisputed master of the household and the family estate, the Kaileros. She manages the finances, directs the labor of the helots, and makes the day-to-day decisions. This economic power is substantial, as we've touched on, because women could inherit land in the absence of male heirs, and because so many men died in war, women came to control a vast portion of Sparta's wealth. Aristotle, a fierce critic of Sparta, blamed the decline of the state partly on this fact, a practice he called gynecogratia, or rule by women, which he saw as a sign of disorder. For a Spartan, it was simply a practical reality. This freedom extends to her public life. Spartan women are not sequestered. They walk freely about the city. They engage in conversation with men who are not their relatives, and they are known for their outspokenness. They attend public festivals and religious ceremonies, and their opinions are, if not formally solicited in the assembly, certainly heard and respected within their powerful family networks. The contrast with Athens is stark. An Athenian citizen once famously said that the best reputation a woman could have was to be spoken of as little as possible by men, whether for praise or for blame. In Sparta, women like Agoge, the wife of King Leonidas, were famous for their sharp wits and political acumen, and their stories were told as examples of proper Spartan character. A particularly fascinating and little-known aspect of their role was in the enforcement of social norms. Spartan women were seen as the ultimate arbiters of male courage. They were the ones who famously told their sons and husbands to return with your shield, or on it, but they also publicly shamed cowards. A man who had fled in battle, Atreus, was a social outcast. He would be shunned in the mess halls, and no respectable girl would marry him. Accounts tell of mothers who, upon hearing their son had behaved cowardly, would refuse to see them, or worse. It was a powerful form of social control, and it was wielded by the women. They were the guardians of Sparta's most important currency honor. The academic world has long been fascinated by the paradox of the Spartan woman. Was she, as some modern feminists have argued, a truly liberated figure in a sea of misogyny, or was her freedom just a different kind of cage? Her education, her athleticism, her economic power, were these rights granted to her as an individual, or were they simply tools to make her a more effective servant of the state's eugenic project? The debate is fierce. One side argues that her agency was real and that she possessed a dignity and power unknown to other Greek women. The other argues that she was still fundamentally a tool, her body and life path dictated by the state's needs. She was not free to choose not to marry, or not to have children, or not to raise them as future soldiers or mothers of soldiers. You see this reality every day. The women around you are not meek and submissive. They are formidable. They are strong, confident, and often intimidating. Your relationship with your wife is not one of a master to a servant. It is one of two specialists, each performing a vital, state-mandated function. You are the specialist in war. She is the specialist in reproduction and household management. Her freedom is the freedom to excel at her assigned task, just as yours is. And in the strange, brutal calculus of Spartan society, this is seen as a perfectly balanced and just arrangement. In a society that has systematically deconstructed the family, institutionalized same-sex bonds, and turned marriage into a clandestine, procreative duty, a simple question arises: where did love fit, and did it exist at all, and if so, what did it look like? This is one of the most intensely debated and fundamentally unknowable aspects of Spartan life. The official ideology, the one you have been fed since birth, leaves little room for personal, romantic love for an individual, be it a wife, a child, or even a friend, is seen as a potential threat to the one love that truly matters: the love for Sparta itself, for the collective. The system is designed to channel all powerful emotions towards the state and the military unit. Your deepest bond is supposed to be with the man standing next to you in the phalanx, a love forged in shared hardship, known as fear. This is a love of loyalty and camaraderie, the bedrock of your army's strength. Then there is the relationship with your mentor, your Aristes, as we've seen. This was a complex and charged bond, a mixture of mentorship, admiration, and, often, physical desire, eros, for a young Spartan male. This was the primary model for an intense, one-on-one emotional connection. It was a state-sanctioned form of love, legitimized because it served a purpose. It integrated you into the warrior class and bound you to an older, experienced soldier. It was a love that served the system. But was it the love between a man and a woman, the love that leads to marriage? A debut. The picture is incredibly murky. The entire structure of your marriage is designed to suppress it. You marry a stranger. You mate in secret. Your interactions are brief and functional. You live apart for the first decade of your union. How could love, as we understand it, possibly flourish in such barren soil? Perhaps it didn't. Perhaps for many, the relationship between husband and wife remained a cool, respectful partnership based on mutual duty. You respect her for producing strong sons, she respects you for being a brave warrior. Their interactions might have been as laconic and emotionally reserved as all other aspects of Spartan life. A nod of approval, a shared glance of pride as your son excels, this might have been the full extent of their expressed affection. Yet, it is difficult to believe that an entire society could successfully legislate away one of the most fundamental human emotions. It is more likely that love existed in the cracks of the system, in the small, unrecorded moments. Perhaps in those secret nocturnal visits, something more than just procreation occurred. Perhaps hushed conversations, shared fears, and genuine tenderness found a way to bloom in the dark, away from the watchful eyes of the state. A fascinating, though perhaps romanticized, Clue comes from the stories surrounding the Battle of Thermopylae. King Leonidas famously chose his 300 men not just for their skill, but specifically because they all had living sons. His reasoning was that their family lines would not be extinguished if they fell. This, on its face, is a classic Spartan calculation, but it also reveals a deep-seated concern for the continuation of the family. The oikos. It suggests that behind the veneer of pure state logic, the bonds of kinship mattered. Furthermore, the stories of the women mourning their husbands are, more famously, celebrating their glorious deaths hint at profound emotional connections. Agoge's grief for Leonidas, though filtered through a lens of Spartan pride, was surely real. Historians are deeply divided on this issue. Some, taking the ancient sources at face value, argue that heterosexual love was genuinely a low priority, suppressed in favor of male camaraderie and civic duty. They point to the institutionalized pederasty in the structure of marriage as clear evidence that the state actively worked to minimize the husband-wife bond. Other scholars argue this view is too simplistic, that it ignores human nature. They suggest that the sources, written by men and for men, simply didn't record the private, emotional lives of men and women. But that doesn't mean they didn't exist. The debate essentially boils down to a single question: was the Spartan system successful in completely re-engineering human emotion, or did love simply go underground, hidden from the official record? As you navigate your life, you are caught in this web of prescribed emotions. You feel the powerful loyalty of failure for your messmates. You recall the intense, confusing mix of eros and admiration for your mentor. And with your wife perhaps there is a quiet, unspoken understanding, a partnership, a shared project. Or perhaps, in the dead of night, after a long day of brutal training, you find in her presence a small, secret comfort, a warmth that the state can never know about and would never approve of. It is a quiet rebellion, a love that exists in the shadows, undefined and unrecorded, but perhaps all the more precious for it. The years pass. You have fought in battles. Your name is respected in the mess hall, and your children are growing within the state system. Then, on your 30th birthday, a profound change occurs. It is not marked by a grand ceremony, but it alters the very fabric of your daily existence. You are finally allowed to leave the barracks. You are permitted to live at home with your wife, for the first time in 23 years. You will have a home that is not a communal, military dwelling. For the first time, you will live under the same roof as the woman you married a decade ago. You are now considered a senior warrior, a man in his prime, and with that status comes the right to a domestic life. The transition is jarring. The world of the barracks is one of absolute routine and public scrutiny. Your life is an open book, lived in the constant company of your peers. The home is a private space, a realm your wife has commanded exclusively for years. You are, in a sense, an intruder in your own house. You get to know your wife, not as a shadowy figure in a dark room, but as a person. You see her in the daylight. You learn the rhythms of her day, the way she manages the household, the way she speaks to your children. She is no longer just the mother of your sons. She is your partner in running the family estate. You are now co-managers of a vital economic unit of the Spartan state. And you finally get to be a father, at least in some limited capacity. Your sons, if you have any under the age of 7, are still at home. You can see them daily, watch them play, and participate in their early, pre-Agoge upbringing. You see your wife instilling in them the fierce pride and discipline expected of a Spartan mother. You might even feel a flicker of the paternal affection that the system has tried so hard to suppress, but you both know this is a temporary arrangement. The day will come when your sons, too, are taken by the state. Even though you now live at home, you are not free from your military duties. You are still a full-time soldier. Every evening, you must still leave your home and go to the mess hall for your communal meal. The SYS city remains the center of your social and political life. Your loyalty to your messmates is still paramount. The state allows you a taste of domesticity, but it never lets you forget where your true family lies. This strange, hybrid lifestyle is unique to Sparta. In other Greek cities, a man's life becomes more private as he ages. In Sparta, you are always on duty. Your move home is not a retirement, it's simply a change of sleeping quarters. A little-known aspect of this transition is how it affected a man's political career. Once you were living at home and had reached the age of 30, you became a full citizen with the right to vote in the assembly, the pillar. You could now participate directly in the decisions of the state, to vote for war or peace, to elect the powerful ephors and the members of the Krypteia. Your move from the barracks to the home coincided with your acquisition of full political rights. Your role expanded from being just a soldier to being a voting member of the ruling class. Historians are divided on the emotional impact of this delayed domesticity. Did this decade-long separation make the eventual union stronger? A long-awaited reward for years of service, or did the habits of a lifetime in the barracks make it impossible for men to ever truly connect with their wives and families? Did you remain emotionally distant, a stranger in your own home, more comfortable with the rough banter of the mess hall than the quiet intimacy of a shared life? It's a compelling question with no clear answer. The system may have produced men who were brilliant soldiers but emotional cripples, incapable of forming the bonds that other societies take for granted. You settle into this new rhythm. Home by night, training by day, mess hall by evening. You are a husband, a father, a soldier, and a voter. You are at the absolute peak of your life as a Spartan man. You have a stake in the system and a voice in its future. But the habits of a lifetime are hard to break. As you sit in your own home, the silence and the privacy can sometimes feel more alien than the familiar noise and grime of the barracks. You have a wife and a family, but your mind is never far from the shield wall, and your loyalty is never in doubt. You are, and always will be, a soldier first, life as a full citizen. The homo iosop is a life of relentless public duty. The word leisure does not exist in your vocabulary in the way an Athenian would understand it. For an Athenian, leisure was time for philosophy, for art, for politics, for commerce. For you, leisure is simply the time you are not actively at war, and it is to be filled with the things that prepare you for war: physical training, public service, and overseeing your estate. Your daily routine is rigid. A significant portion of your day is still dedicated to physical conditioning. You are no longer a boy in the Agoge, but the obsession with physical fitness is lifelong. You frequent the gymnasium, the public exercise grounds. You run, you wrestle, you practice with the spear and the javelin. You are an aging athlete, constantly working to keep your body in fighting shape. A Spartan man's worth is tied directly to his physical prowess, and to let yourself go would be a source of public shame. You are expected to be a model of discipline for the younger generations. Beyond physical training, your life is dominated by your obligations to the state. As a man over 30, you are now part of the pillar, the citizen assembly. You gather periodically to vote on the most important issues facing Sparta. The Krypteia, the Council of Elders, and the two kings proposes laws. But it is the assembly that shouts its approval or disapproval. The voting method is primitive. The side that shouts the loudest wins. It's a system that favors passion and conformity over reasoned debate. You might also be called upon for other civic duties. You could be selected to help oversee the Agoge, using your experience to train and discipline the next generation of boys. You might be involved in judging disputes or managing public resources. Your life is not your own, it is a constant cycle of service to the community. You are also a manager. Your family's plot of land, your kairos, is your economic lifeline. It is the source of the mandatory contributions to your mess hall. If you fail to deliver your monthly quota of barley, wine, and cheese, you lose your citizenship. This is the fate of the inferiors or hypermay men who were born Spartans but lost their status. So, you must spend time overseeing the helots who work your land, ensuring that the farm is productive. You are not a farmer yourself. Manual labor is forbidden for a citizen, but you are a stern overseer. This brings us to the core anxiety of your existence. While you are busy with your training and your civic duties, you are acutely aware that your entire lifestyle is balanced on a knife's edge. It is all made possible by the labor of the helots, a vast, enslaved population that you and your fellow Spartans rule over with an iron fist. A little known but revealing detail of a citizen's life is the constant, low-grade paranoia involved. You never truly relax. Any gathering of helots is viewed with suspicion. A tool that could be used as a weapon is noted. A whisper that stops when you approach is cause for alarm. The fear of a helot revolt is the single greatest driver of your society's militarism. The brutal Agoge, the secret Krypteia, the lifelong training, it's all designed to keep the helots in their place. You are not just a soldier trained to fight for an enemy, you are a prison guard, permanently stationed in a massive open-air prison of your own making. Historians have often characterized Sparta as a permanent military camp, and in your daily life, you see the truth in this. There is no distinction between military life and civilian life. It is all one and the same. The city is not a place of commerce and culture in the way other Greek cities are. It is an armed barracks, and you are a soldier on perpetual duty. The question scholars still ask is whether this system was a choice or a necessity. Did the Spartans choose this life because they valued martial virtue above all else, or were they forced into it by the historical accident of conquering a population that vastly outnumbered them, trapping them in a cycle of oppression and fear? Use it in your mess hall in the evening, the one constant in your life from age 20 onwards. You look around at the faces of the men you have known your entire life. You are all peers, all equals, all bound by the same duties and the same fears. You are the masters of Laconia, the most powerful men in Greece. But you are also prisoners of the very system that gives you your strength. The fear is a constant, low hum beneath the surface of your life. It's the shadow that falls over the sun-drenched training fields, the unspoken tension in the mess hall, the reason you lock your doors at night. This is the fear of the helots. They are the foundation upon which your entire society is built. And you know, with absolute certainty, that they hate you with a passion that has simmered for generations. To understand your life as a Spartan is to understand your relationship with this vast, subjugated population. They are not like the slaves in Athens, who are bought and sold as individuals. The helots are a people, the original inhabitants of the lands you now control, bound to the soil and owned by the state. They have their own families, their own communities, their own culture, and they outnumber you, the full Spartan citizens, by an enormous margin. The exact ratio is debated by historians, but figures like 7-1 or even 10-1 are commonly cited. You are a small, ruling class of lions living in a vast ocean of wolves you have temporarily tamed. Every institution in your society is shaped by this demographic terror. The Agoge is not just about creating good soldiers, it's about creating soldiers so tough and disciplined that they can control a population 10 times their size. The Krypteia is not just a survival test, it's a tool of state-sponsored terrorism designed to eliminate potential leaders and keep the helot population terrified and off balance. Your entire life of constant training is a necessity because you must always be ready for the war that matters most, the one at home. The Spartans themselves spoke of this fear openly. The writer Krypteia called the Spartan state a masterpiece of control, noting that the Spartans had even designed their homes with defense in mind and never went anywhere without a spear. The historian Thucydides tells a chilling story that perfectly illustrates this paranoia. At one point during the Peloponnesian War, the Spartans were worried about the most spirited and daring of the helots rising up. So they made an announcement: any helot who believed he had served Sparta best in the war should come forward to be rewarded with his freedom. About 2,000 men stepped forward, crowning themselves with wreaths and celebrating their imminent liberty. The Spartans then, secretly, had every single one of them murdered. They simply disappeared. Thucydides concludes, the manner of their death was known to no man. This was the Spartan solution to a potential problem: preemptive, total, and terrifyingly efficient. This relationship of fear and depression had bizarre cultural side effects. We've mentioned how you would force a helot to get drunk as a cautionary tale for your young men. This was part of a systematic campaign of ritual humiliation. You would force them to wear ridiculous clothing, like animal skins and leather caps, and sing demeaning songs. This wasn't just casual cruelty, it was a calculated psychological strategy. By constantly portraying the helots as debased and subhuman, you justified your own brutal rule, both to yourselves and to your children. You dehumanized them to make the act of oppressing them psychologically bearable. One of the great unresolved questions for historians is the degree of helot resistance. Our sources, written by upper-class Greeks, tend to portray the helots as a passive, defeated people, occasionally rising up in large-scale revolts like the Great Earthquake of 460 for BC that triggered a massive uprising but otherwise quiescent. But was this the full picture? It's likely that there was a constant, low-level resistance that simply went unrecorded. Acts of sabotage, work slowdowns, petty theft. The story of the Krypteia hunting down the strongest helots suggests that there were always men who refused to be broken, men who carried themselves with a pride that the Spartans found dangerous. The fear was not just of a massive, organized revolt, but of the thousand small ways the helots could resist their enslavement. You live with this reality every day, when you oversee or kill arrows, the plot of land that feeds your family and funds your citizenship. You are not just a manager, you are a warden. The helots who work the fields, who give you a fixed and substantial portion of their harvest, do so under duress. You look at them, and they look at you, and in the space between you lies centuries of violence, resentment, and fear. You know that if your grip were to slip for even a moment, they would rise up and slaughter you and your family without a second thought, and they know that you would do the same to them to prevent it. This is the dark, rotten foundation of Sparta's glorious military state. You are not just a warrior, you are a master, living in perpetual, gnawing fear of your own slaves. The years continue to march on. You have served your state, fought its battles, and raised a new generation to take your place. But now you face an enemy that no phalanx can defeat, no spear can hold at bay time itself. In a society that worships physical perfection and the vigor of youth, the process of aging is a particularly cruel and complex trial. Your body, once a finely tuned weapon, begins to betray you. The speed is not what it once was. The aches from old wounds linger longer after a day of training. In the gymnasium, you see the young men in their prime. Their bodies harden, their movements explosive, and you see a reflection of your former self. There is a quiet dignity in being an elder warrior, a veteran whose scars tell a story, but there is also the undeniable reality that you are no longer at the peak of the mountain. In Sparta, a city obsessed with peaks, this is a difficult descent. You continue your training. Of course, a Spartan man is a soldier until the age of 60, but your role shifts. You are less a frontline warrior and more a mentor, a repository of experience. You spend more time instructing the boys in the Agoge, your voice carrying the weight of real battles, not just practiced drills. Your value to the state is no longer just in your strength, but in your wisdom and your ability to forge the next generation. If you live to the age of 60, you are finally released from military service. This is the Spartan equivalent of retirement. You are now an elder, a Juran, and with this status comes the opportunity for the highest honor a Spartan man can achieve to be elected to the Jurasia. This council of elders consists of 28 men, all over the age of 60, plus the 2 kings. They are elected for life by the assembly. The Jurasia holds immense power. It functions as a supreme court and sets the entire political agenda for the state. To be elected is to reach the absolute pinnacle of Spartan society. The election process, like so many things in Sparta, is bizarre. The candidates are paraded one by one before the assembly, who are gathered in a large, open space. The judges are locked in a nearby building with a writing tablet. able to hear the crowd but not see which candidate is passing. As each candidate walks by, the people shout their approval. The judges simply mark down the volume of the shouting for each anonymous candidate. The one who receives the loudest and most sustained shouts is declared the winner. Aristotle later criticized this method as childish, a shouting match rather than a rational selection based on merit. But for you, it is the ultimate popularity contest, a final judgment on a lifetime of service. But what if you are not elected? What if you simply grow old? Life for an ordinary, aging Spartan is a subject not often discussed in our heroic sources. The focus is always on the warrior in his prime or the venerable elder on the council. For most, old age was likely a quiet fading into the background of a society that had little use for men who could no longer hold a shield. You would still command respect. Of course, deference to elders is a cornerstone of your culture. A younger man would always give you his seat, would always fall silent when you wished to speak. This reverence for age is a strange paradox in a culture so obsessed with youth. Perhaps it was a necessary social contract. You endure the brutality of the system in your youth, and in return, you are guaranteed a place of honor in your old age. It's the system's way of rewarding a lifetime of sacrifice. A lesser-known aspect of Spartan old age was its connection to religion. The elders, the Krypteia, were often seen as having a special connection to the gods. They were the keepers of tradition, the interpreters of omens, and the guardians of Sparta's ancient rites. As your physical power wanes, your spiritual authority grows. You are a living link to the city's past, a symbol of its continuity. Historians are still piecing together the full experience of aging in Sparta. Did the deep bonds forged in the mess hall sustain men in their later years, creating a powerful support network, or did the lifetime of emotional suppression and relentless competition leave old men isolated and alone? Their usefulness to the state expired. It's a poignant and unanswered question. You look at your hands, the skin wrinkled and scarred, the knuckles thick from 1,000 fights. They once held a spear with unshakable strength. Now, they tremble slightly. You have survived. You have outlasted enemies on the battlefield and the brutal attrition of your own society. You are a relic, a monument to a time that is already passing. In a city that carves its history in flesh and blood, you are a living inscription, a testament to the terrible, glorious, and contradictory dream of Sparta. As you live out your final years, you bear witness to the slow, inexorable unraveling of the world you fought to build. The Spartan dream, which seemed so solid, so eternal, begins to show its cracks. The very system that made Sparta strong contains the seeds of its own destruction, and you are there to see them sprout. The most glaring problem, the one you've lived with your whole life, is the catastrophic decline in the number of full citizens. The Homo iou, the peers, are a dying breed. The constant wars, particularly the long and grueling Peloponnesian War against Athens and the later conflicts with Thebes, have bled your city dry of its best men. The rigorous standards for citizenship, the potential for being cast out for failing to pay mess hall dues, and the possible though debated practice of infant exposure have all combined to create a demographic death spiral. Each generation has fewer similar arrests than the last. The phalanx, once deep and terrifying, is now perilously thin. You see the consequences all around you. The gap between the rich and the poor, something your lawgiver Lycurgus supposedly abolished, has returned with a vengeance. As families die out or lose their status, their land, their you, become concentrated in the hands of a few, very wealthy families. And as we've seen, many of these families are controlled by women, the heiresses who inherited the land of their fallen male relatives. The idea of a brotherhood of equals, all sustained by a modest plot of land, has become a bitter joke. No, there is a super rich elite and a growing class of inferiors. Men of Spartan blood who have lost their citizenship and now live in a state of resentful poverty. The discipline that once defined you begins to fray. With wealth comes luxury, the very thing your ancestors despised. Gold and silver, once outlawed, begin to corrupt the system. The old, austere ways are challenged by the desire for personal comfort and wealth. The black broth and coarse bread of the mess hall seem less appealing when some of your peers own vast, profitable estates. The final, fatal blow comes from a place you never expected. Not from the sullen Helots, not from the rival Athenians, but from the Thebaeans, a people you had long considered your inferiors. In 371 BC, at a place called Krypteia, the unthinkable happens. The Theban general Epaminondas employs a revolutionary new tactic. Instead of a balanced phalanx, he massively strengthens his left wing, 50 ranks deep, and drives it like a battering ram into the right wing of your phalanx, the traditional position of honor where your best troops, including one of the kings, are stationed. The Spartan line, for the first time in centuries in a major pitched battle, breaks. The king has killed hundreds of your finest soldiers. The irreplaceable core of your army are cut down. The myth of Spartan invincibility is shattered in a single afternoon. The psychological shock is immense. But the practical consequences are even worse. The loss of so many citizens is a blow from which your city will never recover. Following the defeat, Epaminondas marches into the heart of your homeland, an act no enemy had dared for centuries. And he does the one thing that will seal your fate forever. He liberates Messenia, the vast, fertile territory to your west. The Messenian Helots, who have toiled under your yoke for over 300 years, are now free. With the stroke of a pen, you lose half of your land and the majority of your servile labor force. The economic foundation of the Spartan state is destroyed. The academic world still debates the precise cause of Sparta's fall. Was it the demographic decline, the economic inequality, or the tactical inflexibility on the battlefield? Most historians agree it was a combination of all three. The system was too rigid, too resistant to change. It was a perfect machine for a specific type of warfare and a specific social structure. But when the world changed around it, the machine could not adapt. It simply broke. You stand on the banks of the Krypteia River, an old man looking at a city that is a shadow of its former self. The training continues. The rituals are observed, but the spirit is gone. The unshakable confidence has been replaced by a gnawing sense of loss. The young boys still enter the Agoge, but what are they training for? The empire is gone. The Helots are, for the most part, free. The fear that drove you has been replaced by the bitter reality of defeat. You lived your whole life as a cog in a great, terrible, and magnificent machine. You endured its cruelty. You enforced its discipline, and you believed in its purpose. Now, at the end of your days, you see the machine lying broken in the dust. The Spartan dream is over. And so, your journey as a Spartan comes to a close. You have walked a long and unforgiving path, from the cliffside judgment of your birth to the quiet twilight of a fallen power. The world you knew, a world of iron discipline and unwavering certainty, has dissolved like mist on the mountains. The rigid lines between duty and desire, between the state and the self, which once seemed so clear, now blur in the haze of memory. The echoes of the training grounds, the ghosts of the phalanx, the silent weight of the shield, they are all a part of you. Feel the cool night air now. A gentle breeze where the biting wind of the Tagetos once blew. The hard ground of the barracks softens into the comfort of your bed. The harsh commands of the elders fade into a quiet hum, a distant murmur that lulls you deeper into rest. You are no longer a soldier on watch, no longer a master fearful of the dark. You are simply a listener, an observer, drifting now on the slow, peaceful current of the night. Let the story release you. Let the weight of history settle, becoming light as a feather as you float towards the shores of sleep. The struggles are over, the duty is done. There is only peace now, and the promise of a quiet dawn. The end of the article. Good night.